Hi, everybody. I hope everyone is okay and you're engaging with family and friends, and everything seems to be working well. I have a few questions here. Um, One is from Addie in England, Peterborough in the UK, and it's a bit of an interesting question. I'm not sure I have an interesting answer, but Addie, here goes. Uh, she says, for a couple of years now, I've been having the mind manifestation saying the answer to everything is both. Now, that's without really understanding, I'm assuming, what it really means. And it'd be like meeting a sage on a trip someplace, and she turns to you and says, the answer uh, to everything is both. So I'm going to make a stab at this. Addie, please be open to having your own uh, perception with respect to these things. And but we often work with um, an idea as an answer, and then you have an opposite. Um, when you're looking at things, there are so many options, so many answers that you can come up with, and all of them have reference points that relate directly to the personality that's giving an answer. And that's really fine. The importance of knowing that that's fine is understanding that one individual may be coming from a bias that's slightly different than the one than another individual, yourself or myself or anybody else's self. And within that construct, each individual will reach an idea that satisfies the bias that they have. That's in relationship to each and every personality that exists. You might find a dozen people who have the same kind of an answer, thousands maybe, um, millions in some cases. But there's a kind of a cushion. There's an alliance that's there uh, within that structure, and then there's a belief that really basically says any other answer is not as good as the one we have. That kind of thing. In fact, there are other answers that can be coming through a different way of understanding or believing. Both of these answers, or the many options that may be coming from many people, all of them are okay. They're all right. It sounds weird, but it's right for an individual to think one way before she or he can think in a different way. You may notice this in your own engagement with life when you're talking to other people. You don't, there's you're talking to each other, and suddenly you're expressing yourself in a certain kind of a way, and you're not thinking about it. Your internal biases are making sense of things. One can say it's a bit intuitive, one could say. The intuition, so called, is a conglomeration of biases that you have around the subject matter. And you may not even know what you think about a subject or a question that's being considered at all, but you give an opinion. That opinion is an option. And It's valid for you in that 1 second to give it. 1 second later, it may not be what you believe, because now you see you have expressed yourself in a certain way, and that expression, if you're willing to have that expression be a kind of base in a strange way, um, you can say, well, this expression I may not totally agree with, even though you've said it. Now, you may be around a group of people that says, if you say something, you must believe it. And that is, it's not necessarily true. You have a right to adjust what you think might be true in a kind of funny way. It's valuable for you to listen to you, to see what you believe, and then be curious about what you think you believe. You may find out that you don't believe the same way. But every time there is an expression of that thought, that is, it's a reference point for another thought. And as I say, in some way, you may also think that it's a great idea that you've just expressed, and now you want to defend that idea because it's yours. You're really not defending the idea. You're defending you in your speaking of it. And that has nothing to do with the idea. In this question, there is an understanding that can be deeper. If you engage, for example, with anything that I'm talking about as an example, you come up with a different idea. That idea is where you are in your relationship with whatever we're talking about. It is not negative, it's not perfect, neither is mine, neither is anybody's. But there is a movement inside of you within your personalized construction that allows you to consider something, and you come up with an idea, whether it's the same as mine, doesn't matter. It's an idea, and you remember you can begin to defend the idea no matter what it looks like. And you can agree or disagree with anyone else's idea no matter what it looks like, just doesn't matter. But the issue that's in a possible way of the way of looking at this particular idea, everything is both, is that you recognize, you can allow yourself within you to recognize that you're edging your way towards something that will help you to understand your option or your opinion differently than needing to defend it. In a positive twist, you can say, that will help me to reconsider that first idea. Do I really think like this? How do I think? The biases of all of us affect us in relationship to how we present something. It is true for everyone. In relationship to a higher state, an idea like this, Patty, could be something that is added to the mix of a number of ideas to imply that each one of those ideas, in their own level of engagement as you develop, are appropriate. They may be appropriate for 20 years. They might be appropriate for 10 seconds. They might be, but if you allow that kind of movement to occur, it's a kind of thinking because you're observing what you're saying, and then you can say, oh no, that's not right. If you can loosen that up a little bit, and this is really hard to do, rather looking at it from right or wrong, good or bad, just say, okay, that's my first take on it. You can do this when you're thinking or attempting to think. Okay, what else could I think about that? Or is there something broader than that? And many times you'll find that there always is something a little broader, unless you move to defend. And when you move to defend something, you want to maintain what you said in the first instance. It's allowed, even that, because there is movement internally, whether that is considered on the surface yet to be valuable, there's still movement internally with respect to having heard what you thought. And that's what I would make out of that. And I'll see if no, I think that's, so you're always in a movement towards a broader engagement with learning. If a sage had said that, for example, she or he may be thinking a different way, because sages often think in two ways. What is valid here on the surface level, what they would call it personality level, and what is valid in relationship to a higher mental state or a mind state. They often use the word when they really mean a kind of awareness beyond the way we are able to think. An awareness beyond the way we're able to think, which transpires and posits itself into this brain. And then you come up with an idea. The idea is posited there. It takes you a few seconds to recognize the idea. If it's in a language that you can understand, then you recognize it and you say it a few times, and you might even consider it yours. Knowing the difference between the two spaces is what a sage would know. And he would say something like, this is an option. Within themselves, they may say, are there other options? How can this move me in a direction so that I can understand deeper than I can allow myself with my biases to comprehend currently, just currently? Everything moves to another engagement, another understanding. So that's called developmental. And I think that particular kind of a statement is typical of what some of these sages will come up with, because it's an ancient method of teaching. It's not a current method of teaching. You know, you go to a class of some kind, you go there to learn something, and you write it down and you memorize it, and now you know it. And now you call it a truth. And a truth relative to that is laden with biases related to others. And this is a normal, typical way of engaging on our planes. This is natural, not negative at all. And there are many, for example, many scientists who involve their, come up with their thinking being better than other scientists' kind of thinking. There's a bias there. And then experimentation goes along. You're trying to work with something and find out whether it really works or not. Best out of 100, best out of 35, depending on how many are in your experiments. And so it's just an idea that might be helpful. Thanks, Eddie. Here's another one. kind of, if you kind of think of this, it's in the same spirit, but it's a very different question. This is from Natalie Taylor. Now I'll go on. She has, okay, I'll just speak it up. I've been wondering about the scripts we run, or what you called our virtual realities. In other words, they're biased realities. It's fine. I've been watching myself go from one to another mode. Simplistic versions, nothing is okay, everything is okay, and having to act and feel accordingly. And find some tension around finding the space in between those virtual realities where you just are perceiving and responding in the moment without as much of an overlay. I've also been reading about scientists in the book you lent me. I think that's something to do with the 18th, 17th century. And in one, I'm going to lend you. Okay. Who the scientists who get obsessive about fitting everything into the theory of how they see the world and having a nervous breakdown, in Newton's case, with the pursuit of alchemy, or with great animosity, alienating everyone who adds modifications to their great insights. Okay, that's the opening phase. Second paragraph. So you watch yourself hopping from one script to another. You can see that she's in a particular hopping methodology, mental orientation or emotional orientation. Even when you find yourself in a calmer, more observing state, quite happily, you can then see yourself trying to make that into a formula of, so that's how I'm supposed to be. So I must say, Natalie, that is a prescription for being judgmental. You have to be just a hair careful of this, although we all do this from time to time. Do you have to keep going back and softening, or do you grow to find a space that's more you, that can last a bit longer without needing to package it into a must be? This is the language of a bias. In a few minutes, I'll use another language of another bias. If you're listening to this, you listen to it through the ears of a bias. That is who we are and what we are and why we are. Engaging with the relationship that we have with us. We are involved in a relationship. You are involved with you. I am involved with me, and whatever that is made up of. Natalie is involved with Natalie. And when you're listening to this, you're listening to the involvement that Natalie has with herself. When I give a response to it, you'll be listening to the relationship that I have with myself. If you are coming up with an idea before we even finish, you are having a relationship with what you have with yourself. This is what we live through and we function with. So these are kind of a little bit, she's a bit edgy, but she's trying to be honest in her way. Is this what you've meant by saying that life has to be lived moment to moment? Okay. I want to answer that, but I'm not going to. Just a minute. Do you have to keep going back and softening, Or do you grow to find a space that's more you, that that can last a bit longer without needing to package it into a must be? Okay. You said that we are constantly creating new images, and we are. If we did find ourselves in that space, we probably would run from it because it doesn't feel like us. So, there in that statement, there is a protection of how you believe you think you are. It's what we all do. So, there's nothing negative there. But it's a question related to kind of, I don't want to do that. And kind of, well, gee, when I do it, it kind of feels good, but, isn't, is something strange about this, perhaps? I'm adding a little. A side thought: does this have anything to do with the experiment of adding consciousness to an animal form that previously lived pretty unself consciously? In other words, reactively? Seems like we have an awful lot of difficulty generated from being aware of what we do, plus a lot of difficulty by not knowing what we do. All of these are old questions. Just been doing some thinking about them. This is a thinking process Natalie has kindly allowed us to see. So this is kind of, in a way, it tells me that there's a misunderstanding as well going on here. Or let's put it this way. When you're engaging with yourself and the relationship you have with yourself, just watch and let go. If you watch and then start judging it, you're adding new intensity to your engagement. You're not trying to eradicate anything. This is a kind of misunderstanding. What you're trying to do is see if you can allow yourself to know you as you are currently, moment to moment. Do you have a reaction about that? Yes, I do. I have a reaction about that. Okay. Then what about this? Do you have a reaction to that? No, not so much. I don't have a reaction there. You're informing yourself about you. Here's the reason. I don't know if I said this. Let's see. This has to be practiced for you to be aware of that which is not you inside of you. You remember those pictures that Neville so kindly, that we showed at the seminar, so kindly made for us, where two people are facing each other, they're talking, normal stuff. They're engaging with each other. Energy is transmitted from the solar plexus to the other person and vice versa. Gonad center, same thing. Root center, same thing. There's a little bit of activity more in one person in the throat center. Energy is moving forward all the way through the system. More activity for one person than the other in the throat center. More activity in the brow center for one person than the other. And unknown to the individual, energy is moving through them to stimulate activity so there can be a movement in the other person's throat center to become more functional with it. Each are helping each other. each are helping each other. If you had the awareness of where you were being helped, you could say, I'm being helped. We're not trained very well to say we're being helped. If anything is different than how we think we need to be, and we love that, we're in love with ourselves in a certain way. It's just real. Sorry, guys. Whatever which way, we love how we present, how we interact. We may even have a terrible reaction to how we do things, but it will always be the flaw of the other. In this case, if you had awareness of the other's transmission, because you are aware of something beyond yourself, and you know the difference between you and another energy coming into you. In that particular instance, you would know you're being helped, unless you tilted it towards, for example, that throat center is helping me, or that throat center is telling me, is trying to change me. I'm having a reaction to that. It must be the wrong thing. It may not be the wrong thing at all, because your bias is defending how you were without knowing, without understanding that you are being helped. When a higher state is helping you, your reflexes stand in the way because they are defensive. I don't mean it negatively. I mean, you naturally, reflexively defend against being something you don't understand, or something that makes you feel slightly different, or something that you've already decided is the only being you want to love. And that is our relationship with us. We have a love relationship with us. And we're not trained to see loving. We're trained to see from a different perspective, from a defending perspective. So this is asserting the defense. And this is not negative. This is what everyone does. So learning how to perceive differently and watch you as you are begins to help you understand when something might be beneficial, as opposed to pervasively engaging with the defense of that which has been before. You can do it either way. Neither is negative. But you're considering the possibility of engaging with a level that is currently unperceivable by us in a natural form. And what I mean by that is, it's not normal in our world to perceive a flow of energy that would be always being helpful to us. So, as an example, an individual wants to grow, wants to become more spiritual, one could say. I call it growing. So, at the same time, the individual wants to maintain how they were before, so that how they were before could be recognized as a personality who has attained a goal called spiritual. And this is the nature of how we look at spirituality, rather than looking at it as preparation for a moment where another state, so-called spiritual state, can operate into us because we are willing to allow ourselves to adapt beyond how we actually were, little by little, not big jumps. Big jumps are usually recorded in our relationship with life as positive attainments by the personality. If you really had a tremendously large jump, you would not want to tell anybody. But there are so many other increases in flow that we have to adapt to in preparation for a much deeper alignment with the higher state and still maintain our relationship here on these planes. I remember one person telling me one time that they wanted to engage with those higher states, but they're not too pleased about coming back here after that happened. And I thought, wow, when you come back here, you're going to be faced with your relationship with you. Can you soften it down enough to be okay with you and respectful of you and kind to you, rather than shifting your defense submodality to defending the higher state and you no longer are worthy of anything, because it doesn't work like that. Preparation, allowing yourself to perceive how you are with respect, not judgment, and beginning to learn how to see where a little shift might be helpful to get just beyond the reflexes that you always have. And you will find this difficult. You will find it, and you may not want to find it difficult. You may want to find it kind of soft and fuzzy. And it gets there, and you have periods of this. But also, when you see things, your natural reactions that you don't necessarily like in you, they come out to play. You've used them for years. Why would they not come out to play? But you don't have to comply with them. And that's difficult to understand. Sometimes they're so strong, they get away on you. Happens to everybody. Really able people have the same thing happen to them. They may not want to show that in front of you because you're supposed to, understand that they don't have them, especially when they're doing certain things. Well, they do. And they try to, with all due respect, they try to encourage themselves to soften that down. There's another thing. What we forget is that if you are angry or frustrated or anxious about something, your relationship with other people, depends on who the people are, is harder or harsher. And you do that because you're trying to survive within yourself. not because you don't like the other person. You're anticipating. You're trying to survive by acting in a manner that relates to how you have reacted previously. Those things don't die off, but they are used less. You transmit that energy to others. That affects them. They don't know what to do to soften down the effects. So they blame you for doing it. And in your mind, you may not think that you're doing that, but you are transmitting your anxiety under a circumstance, like a rebuff of you, but it appears to be a rebuff of someone else. Softening that down is really helpful to you and, of course, to others. That allows you to have a broader understanding, but it's not perfect. And if you do it once, you're not perfect. But you're learning. And that's a key. And the idea of learning is extremely more valuable than having a point of reference that is superior to others because you don't do what they do, unless, of course, you're under threat. And then you do exactly the same as they would do. But threat is related to sensitivity within. And a person may be very sensitive internally because of their experience, life experience. And you may touch them with words. Automatically, those words are considered coming from you and you meant them. By now, you should all know that words come out of your mouth that you didn't even think about. But you react with them. You express, you write them. You believe since they come from you, they're very valuable. Same as anybody who writes anything. So softening this down creates a place in you where you can see that softer flow come in and you're still watching it. It's affecting you, but you're watching it affect you. When the harsher places come in toward you, you're watching it. Yes, you're reacting to it, but you're not necessarily externalizing only with no perception whatsoever. You're learning. You can help yourself learn. And it makes you more sensitive and creates a place within yourself, like a screen almost, where you can watch energy coming in and you can watch the way you've become biased in relationship to perceived threats. These biases, by the way, are not always true, but they are personalized. And that doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you aware in a certain way. There are other ways to be aware. It's a considerably valuable thing, especially later when you are more sensitive to these higher states. They will want you to see something occurring, energy coming into you, from a person who may need help, from a person who is just frustrated. You don't have to buy into it, but you can see it. With all due respect to every one of us, we normally are used to buying into whatever is coming in our direction. And we are easily manipulated by intensity. We don't understand that we are really intensity sensitive. And learning how to be a little bit better in softening it down helps us to move beyond that animal nature that she's talking about. Related, and I think that aspect, animal nature that she's talking about, is just related to biases. We also have an inner nature, a spiritual nature, and we're not used to using it as much. But it can impact on us. The awareness, in my opinion, is very valuable because then you can begin to engage for sure, not just guessing, not only stimulated in the base chakras, for example. You begin to notice those who are subtly emitting energy for the benefit of our growing, not for the benefit of themselves. This is not magical, it's just a level of perception. So, what I could say is begin to learn to handle more flow as needed by yourself or by others in your inner development is a key to softening down and slowing down the reflexes that we've already trained for many, many years. Go slow with this. Yeah, everybody wants to be spiritual next week. And the spiritual is based on the definitions that they're involved with. They need to be broadened out a little bit because they end up being personally motivated, personally focused on as the personality being viable or valuable. It's hard for us to move into that development. It's much easier to gain access to some kind of way of taking a look at how a person is on the surface and then declaring them valuable or spiritual or whatever. That's easy because that's opinion. And opinion often is not reconsidered or not used to understand, oh, wow, that's what I think currently. And then trying to understand broader. Thanks very much for that question, Natalie. How are we doing? We have a few minutes. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to answer this next question very well, but here's this question from Catherine Stewart in Vancouver. There is a question that asks, what is faith? Oh my gosh. This is a very difficult question. Some of you out there will say, that's not that difficult. But the way I kind of see it, it kind of is. Faith, as we know the word, is normally used to speak of a belief that is considered of great value or an idea as ideal. And it's usually personality based. And it's a feeling often that we get that we're on the right track to something that we already consider we understand. And in fact, it's fine to think that way. It isn't quite the way I understand it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's not a good way to think of it. Another level of faith is an experience. And unfortunately, our experience, once again, is personality based. It's a tool we have to engage with life. We use our personality, and it's a way of seeing the world, and we have faith in it. You will have people say, well, that can't be true. My way is better than yours, and this and all that. So let them be like that. They have faith in that. That faith will get to the point where a new idea becomes a version of what that might mean. That's what I mean by personality based. Another level of universal faith within us is the activity of energy impacting in us for a narrow second, for a week, for a year, all our life. It's a knowing that is generated and expressed through another level that comes into you, and your heart feels it. It can be your feet feeling it, it can be the head feeling it. It's resonating internally in you. And in that moment, you can't get rid of it, and neither would you ever want to. It glows like a loving that we can't really understand too well. It can be peaceful. It can be also in a place inside of the personality cage where it lingers, actually to show you how much you love you the way you are, so you can go beyond that and broaden that out a little bit. It gives you an awareness inside, in your head, in your sensitivity, in your intuition, some people would rather say, that there is something beyond me, you, them, others. While they are in that moment, they are beyond them. They are beyond others. While it's in me, I would be beyond me. It is a tangible thing. It's akin to loving, akin to compassion, akin to, I don't know, being in a space that you can't achieve by being you, targeting that area. It comes in to you, makes everything that you grumble about, all that, disappear, because you're not attending to it. You're only attending to that. That's a different kind of faith than the personality biased faith. I'm not saying the personality bias faith isn't fine and good. It is fine and good from at the exact second of where you are there. It is akin to a belief. One could actually say it's a distraction from faith. But while you have faith in that belief, it is not a distraction. It's where you only can be. And that is not negative because we grow from within, little by little by little. One could say, in a personality way, have faith that that will happen. But now, that's a personality way of talking about it. Another way would be, speaking about growing, then that flow comes in to show you that's the growing. Doesn't mean you have attained that. It means that is faith, that occurrence. And that's what all of us would like to have, even for a second. If you have it for a second, don't complain that it's gone. If you had it for a moment and you notice that flow coming in for a moment in your life, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 10 seconds ago, 2 seconds from now, it's an indicator, it's showing you this is of great value. This is the expression of faith, of love, compassion, that comes in from a different place. You don't make it up. We're learning how to be receptive to it, preparing little by little. If you miss out one time and you grumble about how you acted this way or that way, or don't want to change that, how dare I, blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. So what? Start again. Who cares? That higher state's not going to beat you up about it. Not relevant. Already knows you do that. It's not calling you a bad thing. It's still engaged with you. There's no negativity attached to it. Continue. Do what you can. Do what you can. That's all. You can do better today. Okay. Tomorrow, maybe not as well. Do what you can tomorrow. Didn't do well? Doesn't matter. You did what you could tomorrow. That's all you could muster. It's not everything is credit, debit, clocked as negative and you're a bad person. Some people believe this. I think they've learned this from outside. It affects you under those conditions. It hurts you. That's not friendly, the hurting. Ask for help for that hurting. Do the best you possibly can. It will help you the best it can, the best you can handle the helping, that flow. That is the having of faith. not your personality, the expression of that flow. I want to thank you all for sending those questions in. I'm fortunate enough to have at least some for the next Thursday. All questions are always appreciated. And thank you very much. And we'll now go to the point of we're going to try and meditate for about an hour, between 50 minutes and an hour. Please take care of yourselves. Good night.